On.
We are live.
Are we live?
Are we live?
We're live.
We are live.
Okay, I'm gonna test this
Well,
out.
let's
Make
just
sure
see
we're
if we're live. Are we live right now?
Okay.
Hold on, let's
we need
check.
confirmation that we're live. We're waiting.
Come on, someone confirm that we are live. Can we get a confirmation? Can we get an amen?
Well, let's see here. You on YouTube? Here we go. Oh, we are live.
Oh, we
we
are
are
live.
definitely
Oh, yeah.
live. All right,
Oh,
here
we're
we
live.
are.
All right, you put it on.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
What's up? This
Hello, hello.
is Austin with the Best Defense Foundation. I'm the video producer. We're here with special guest Donnie Edwards, who is the founder of the Best Defense Foundation. Said that funny. And we are especially delighted that we are here with Mr. Francis Turner, who is our esteemed veteran that we're going to talk to tonight. And he is 100 years young, and he's doing great.
He's doing fantastic.
How you feeling?
I'm here.
He's here. How are you
Yeah.
feeling, Francis?
I feel great, and I've been enjoying this trip immensely.
We have too. I love having you here.
Absolutely.
And so, Francis, this is the world here. You see that
Say
little,
hi to the world.
see that little camera there? That's who you're talking to.
That's who I'm talking to. Okay.
Oh, somebody's already a fan of our choice of whiskey for the night.
All right.
Oh.
All right.
Bourbon.
All right.
Bourbon.
We took everyone's advice from our last live feed, and everybody was yelling, "Buy that man a drink," and so we did. We bought him the finest we could find, courtesy of Catherine Edwards, and Angel's Envy. I don't know if I could.
Have you had that before?
Angel's Envy?
Have you had that
For
before?
those nights when
I've never had
you
it
just
before.
want to have fun.
I don't know. Catherine said it's pretty good.
I love it. It's my absolute favorite.
Is it really?
So let's go ahead and start by pouring Mr. Turner.
All right, let's do
glass.
that.
He likes it with ice.
You like it with ice? Okay.
Mm.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
On the
So
rocks.
we
On
got,
the
we got
rocks.
some people watching. So people, we want you to. We want this to be an open forum for you to ask questions to the veterans, and we'll be paying attention to the comments here,
Let that
and
saturate.
he'll answer the questions the best that you can.
There you go.
Okay.
Oh, I'm gonna.
There you go. You want a little drop of water there?
I do want a little drop of water in there if we can. Now this is the funniest, daintiest little glass I've ever drinking bourbon out of, but I am secure in my manhood.
It's all right. It's all good. Cause
I am all good.
see the
with that.
wings there? They'll help you fly.
They're flying.
You're fine.
Hey, we got some
All right.
questions here
All right.
already. Okay. And it says here, where did you serve in World War II and what rank were you?
Mm.
Well, I served the whole World War II from November the 8th in North Africa to,
What year was that?
that was in 1941.
1941 in Africa.
In Africa, I was a new second lieutenant.
Okay, fresh
out of
fresh out of
Canada. I enlisted in the
Canada.
Army in 1941 and was sent to Fort Belvoir, and I went to Officer Candidate School at Fort Belvoir.
Alright.
And I graduated on August the 5th of 1942, and October the 19th, I was on a ship headed to North Africa.
Where in North Africa?
At Port Leoti in particular, which is a little north of Casablanca. We unloaded all of the combat vehicles that was on board the ship at sea. There were 108 of them. 36 were light tanks.
Wow.
And we got fired upon by the Jean Bart, a battleship of the French Navy that was stationary. It couldn't sail because it didn't have any engines.
Huh.
And we went out to sea a little ways. There was 500,000 gallons of aviation gasoline in 5-gallon cans in the deep tanks of that ship.
Jeez.
And we offloaded 50,000 gallons to a coastal steamer, but motion waves, the two ships were battering each other.
Bouncing up and down, huh?
And yeah, we're coming together too.
Yeah.
Making some sparks
Yeah,
fly.
exactly. It wasn't smooth waters.
And so
And that was on your way out to Africa?
we
So
were.
that was
we
basically
were
your
at-
first experience?
We were already there.
Oh,
you were already
yeah, they were
okay.
there.
Yeah.
And when we got fired upon, the ship moved out of range.
Oh.
And then we came back into range and started unloading the gasoline. And they decided that was too dangerous, so they were going to go to Casablanca to unload the ship.
Oh, okay.
And on the way, unfortunately, we got torpedoed.
Oh, jeez.
And it hit that ship in the only place that it could hit without doing tremendous damage, like sinking it.
Oh, wow. So you got lucky.
We got lucky.
Jeez.
Like
I
close
think
up
the
some-
gasoline in the deep tanks of the ship was the reason it floated.
Oh, wow.
Because the torpedo hit the midships in the biggest hole in the ship, blew a hole in it, and it flooded that hole, and it also flooded the hole ahead of the main hold and the engine room.
Jeez.
So
That had to be terrifying.
it happened so
Yeah.
quick you didn't know what was going on.
For sure.
But it was diesel, wasn't the,
It was a
it
diesel
was
electric
diesel.
ship.
So it was still able to,
It came within maybe the height of this table of sinking. That's how far up the water was to the main deck.
Wow. So
And- When we went back aboard the ship, we evacuated. I was taken off of the ship. The story that I really like to tell about that was the day before we were torpedoed, this destroyer came alongside, a World War I destroyer, and we could, on the main deck, you could look into the bridge of the destroyer. When we got torpedoed, and the ship got that low in the water, that standing at that same rail, you looked at the deck of the destroyer. So we were within 4 feet of sinking.
oh man.
Nice. Well, have you tried your bourbon yet?
Yeah, I
Johnny, did
tasted
you try it?
I have tried it actually.
I said we have a cheers.
I'm not a bourbon drinker, but
So-
you know, since we're here with Mr. Francis Turner, who's 100 years old plus
Oh, yeah.
4 months now, right? 4 or 5 months now.
4 or 5 months.
Yeah, April
100 years and
29th.
4 months.
29.
April 29th, 1919. I'm sure when you put your birth date on some forms, they probably say, "Oh, sir, you made a mistake. It's 2019 right now." Right, exactly.
2019, sir, not
Right.
1919.
Right on. Well, let's make
have
a
a
little
cheers.
toast. Let's make a little toast. Yeah.
So, Catherine on here on YouTube asks, "What do you think of the bourbon?"
It's pretty smooth.
Yeah, that's pretty
All
smooth.
right, I
All
think
right.
it is too. Well, let's
Angel's
take a-
Envy, send us a check.
Here we go.
That'd be so cool if we
Yeah.
got sponsored by Angel's Envy. Wouldn't that be great?
Ooh, nice.
That is
very
nice.
nice.
So someone asked, were you able to watch the battle between the John Bart and the U.S. Massachusetts? Like, did you
I don't know.
were you able to like?
See the battle.
Like,
no,
see
we
it?
didn't see any real battle. Actually, the French forces gave up
Oh,
real
okay.
quick.
No way. I don't believe that.
Oh, come on, Joe.
They really didn't want to battle us in particular. They wanted us to come ashore and help them defeat the Nazis.
But they fired on you as well. Was this Vichy forces?
Yeah, the John Bart
The John-
was a naval ship. It was disabled. It was in Casablanca Harbor, but it was disabled. It had no engines, so it couldn't come out and battle us. But it did fire on us,
Okay.
and that was interesting. You know, a geyser water came up on one side of the ship, the starboard side, and then a couple of minutes later, a big one a geyser came up on the other side of the ship, and that's when we set sail.
We're out of here.
Yeah,
We
that's
got
fun.
out of there.
Nice. Okay, so more questions on here. This guy, Rodrigo, asks, what was the most difficult mission that you had to go through?
Difficult mission.
Yeah. So he was in all 7 major battle campaigns, right?
Right.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
I mean, this guy was there. He saw
A lot of action.
So this will actually be a really interesting answer because he saw a lot of missions.
I don't know what I would describe as the most difficult battle that we got involved in, but we I would think that landing at Normandy was probably the toughest thing that I was involved in.
And you landed in Normandy after D-Day, correct?
D+3.
D+3.
Yeah, and in Africa, when we went in there, I was the ship's party. My platoon had the job of unloading the ship.
Okay.
And so there were 108 vehicles aboard that ship that we unloaded over the side. We kind of cracked up a few of the tanks because,
Oops, sorry.
you know, it's one of those things that you learn.
We have to erase the 0 days since an accident on the job.
we had 4 guy lines on tanks, for example, or light tanks. So they would come up through the hold, and we could hold them in the center of the hold. But when they swung the boom over the side, we only had 2 guy lines.
Okay.
Those that were on board. And the ship was swaying, and the tank was swaying, and go out, and the bosun mate that was running the winches, he'd raise the vehicle up so it cleared the rail, and then he'd try to drop it on the boat, the tank glider in
At the right
one
time.
side.
Yeah.
And it never, there were all kinds of things that happened. One of the tanks came down, and the commander of the tank, the captain, was hanging on to the rail of the landing craft, and they dropped the darn thing on his hand.
Oh, jeez.
Oh,
Just pour some bourbon on it. It'll be all right, right?
so someone asked if you were with the big red one, 1st Infantry Division. No, we're
wasn't.
right here.
Second arm.
Hell on Wheels, 2nd Armored Division, right
Well,
there.
We were, we were Patton's army when we landed in
Yep.
Africa,
North Africa, yeah.
and General Patton was the commander,
Yep.
and he was pretty good.
We should do a
Did you ever meet him?
We should do a whole discussion
Yeah,
on patents.
You met him?
Met him a couple of times. I didn't really talk
Any
to
experiences that you remember from meeting General Patton?
him. When we were in Algiers on the coast on the sea coast, the Mediterranean sea coast of Africa, General Patton came up there with some VIPs from the States. He was going to show them how we were going to land the troops in Sicily.
Mm-hmm.
And they had this landing ship, infantry, LSI, and they were coming in to the bay, and a boat hit the bottom, and the ensign on board of the ship backed off the engines and stopped the ship, and he let the ramps down. And the first 2 soldiers that came off of the ramps went in to the water up to their own.
Reconnect. Might have too many people on wireless.
Oh.
I'll get off.
Are we back?
Are you guys all watching it? Oh.
I'm watching it, but I'm on the Wi-Fi.
Okay. Maybe
Are we back?
Yeah, I think we're back on.
Oh, yeah,
we're
we're
back
back.
on.
Okay.
We're back
Okay.
on. We're back
Sorry
on.
about that, guys.
We
No
lost
worries.
you for a second there.
No, we're
Hey, check this out. Dave Deaver just sent us $20.
Oh, fantastic.
Thank you, Dave. So that's a really cool thing to point out. If people donate to our foundation, we are a nonprofit foundation,
Yes.
and we're all volunteers. Every dollar that comes to our foundation goes to help bringing these guys back to where they fought and served. So we're in Holland right now for the 75th commemoration of Operation Market Garden and the liberation of Holland. So, as you can imagine, it costs a lot of money to bring these guys back. Flights to Europe aren't cheap, hotels aren't cheap, but this is what we love to do, and we do this, and it's all done by donations. So every little bit helps. Whatever you guys can do, it's awesome. And just consider buying a drink for a World War II vet.
That's right.
Send $5, send $1. It doesn't matter. Every little bit helps, and it helps bring these guys back here, which is a great thing, right? You having fun?
You're enjoying
Oh,
yourself?
Sure, I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah?
It's been
So
a
do you-
great trip.
So far, so good, huh?
So far,
Two
so
days
good,
been
yeah.
pretty exciting, huh?
I tell you what, it is the most amazing thing to see the way that these guys are honored over here. Like, how is that for you to come back here and be honored by the people?
It's amazing. I guess you could say the appreciation the folks over here show to the American soldiers that came here voluntarily. Well, maybe some of them didn't volunteer really because of the draft, but they came here voluntarily and they liberated the country.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of the fact that I was among those soldiers.
We are too.
that did
That's
that.
pretty special.
We are too.
Bring back.
There's a lot of people on here who's saying just thank you for your service, and like they're just like can't believe they say you're looking really good for 100.
I'm 100.
Yeah, and you're looking really good.
Looking good.
And I was 21
Yeah.
when
Internet
that
lag.
thing started
I
back in
That's what
1941.
someone said.
We got
What?
some lag.
We got lag.
Some internet lag.
The internet.
Are you on?
It's a beautiful thing. The internet in
Ah.
Holland isn't the best right now.
Is it back on?
Yeah, we're here. Your battery's getting low.
Oh,
It should
okay.
be charging. It's plugged in.
Said
It's a
20.
little button on the side.
Mine is doing great.
We're good.
Like that.
All right, we got any more questions?
Yeah, we got more
Keep moving.
questions. Okay, so this is a good one. In war, there's lots of hard times, but what about the good times? Was there a fond memory that you have of your time over here?
Well, I had a lot of experiences.
Oh, expand on that.
Yeah.
Well, the first experience that I had was when we were landing in North Africa. The ship that I was on, the AKA 21, was unloading all the vehicles, and we got those unloaded. And then they started unloading the gasoline. And we only got about 50,000 gallons of gasoline unloaded when we had to move, or they decided to move. They decided to go to Casablanca and go in the harbor and unload the rest of the gasoline. And there was several hundred tons of airport landing mat steel in the big hold. There was all kinds of artillery ammunition and machine gun, 30 caliber. Well, it was 30 caliber ammunition in boxes that were linked together for machine guns. And they decided it would be easier to unload the ship in the harbor, but we didn't make it.
Yeah.
We got, the story that I'd like to tell about it is,
Not necessarily the truth, but the story I like to tell, right?
it's true. The ensign of the Navy came down in the officer's quarters where I was sleeping and woke me up and says, "Get up, Lieutenant." He says, "We're underway. We're going on a straight course at 10 knots. He says, "I can't miss." And then only about a half an hour later, they hit us.
Oh, jeez.
And, but the ship didn't sink because of the gasoline, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And, they started welding the hatch covers onto the side of the ship where the hole was.
Wow.
And pumping it out, dried out the engine room. And while they were doing that, it was an all-electric ship, so were able to get the generators running. And so the winches all worked, and we unloaded all the gasoline and ammunition that was aboard the ship.
Can you describe to us what it's like to have to be on a ship when it's being attacked?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a big bang. After the engine had awakened me, I went down to the quarters where my platoon was quartered and got them up. And I was sitting alongside the bench and there's the main hatchway went up to that part of the ship. And I saw there was a sliding door there, and I opened the sliding door and looked up to see if the light might be showing through, but the hatch covers were in place. And I took about 4 steps and opened the bulkhead door to head up the stairs. And when the torpedo hit,
Oh, dang.
and I turned around and looked, and I could see daylight in the hole.
Oh.
The door that I had opened was gone.
Oh, gosh.
Uh,
Oh, man.
so actually, nobody was killed in that
Oh,
incident.
wow.
Except, well, 2 actually were hit. One of the enlisted men that wasn't under my command got hit by the door, and
Oh.
he didn't make it, but the rest of us did. Went back aboard the ship afterwards and finished unloading it.
Oh, jeez.
When
Well,
they-
you gotta keep going, huh?
Yeah.
They
Ship that
Can't
keeps
let
on
nothing-
ticking,
I bet
right?
you can't let that stuff.
since
set
it
you
didn't
up.
sink,
Just
and they brought a seagoing tug alongside a repair tug and began pumping the ship out and towing it towards shore, so that when we got back aboard the ship, we were able to do it. And they had dried out the engine room enough so that the generators were working, so all the electric
turn back on.
Yeah,
hoists were working.
Good
that's
stuff.
good.
Good stuff.
So, one question here. So, we were talking about ammunition and stuff. They're asking what kind of weapon you carried during the war. They asked specifically if you had an M1 Garand, and did you like the ping at the end of the M1 Garand? Because I know I like the ping at the end of an M1 Garand. I love shooting an M1 Garand, just that pop, 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 ping!
When that clip
Oh
comes
yeah,
out,
it's such a cool sound.
So did the Germans.
Well, oh, yeah,
that's
no, they
when
didn't.
they
like
lowered the boom on.
That's right.
that. So, what weapon did you carry?
I had a Thompson submachine gun,
Oh, yeah, okay.
M1A1.
and I also had a 45 caliber pistol on the belt.
Now, there's an interesting fact about you and your weapon during World War II. And what was that?
An interesting fact.
Yeah.
You're
Well,
going-
I think it's interesting.
He's
Well,
reading
as I've talked to Francis over the years, he's told me that he never fired his weapon during World War II.
that is true.
Yeah.
I never had to fire my weapon at an individual.
And how long were you there?
I was there for the whole war.
The whole
War.
war.
Whole war.
So
From
like
November
So
the
you
8th when we landed in North Africa.
in 41.
I
Right.
went up to Algiers, but I didn't go to Sicily. The combat commands went to Sicily, and then we went to England. And when the first troops were going ashore at Normandy, I was on the road between Tidworth Barracks and Portsmouth.
Okay.
So I was only D+3 when I landed at Normandy.
Yeah. Very cool. Look at this. Somebody else just gave us $50. How about that?
No, that-
50
that's
Canadian.
great.
So that's actually even worth more for us, isn't it?
Where'd you see that at?
Right here. Someone gave. Let me see who it was.
Say his name.
You know, yeah.
Yeah, let's give him some love.
Give him a shout out. Oh, yeah.
Wyatt.
Oh, there it
let's
is.
see.
Wyatt Van Nest. Awesome. He says, "Thank you so much for your service. Without men like you, my family wouldn't be alive right now, and I wouldn't be alive. So I'm eternally grateful for you."
Wow. Thank you, Wyatt.
Great.
No.
Thank
Wyatt,
you,
that's
Wyatt.
great.
That's awesome. So cool. Every little bit helps, like we said.
That's really
Yeah,
cool,
wow.
huh?
So here's an
That-
interesting.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
really cool. The fact that I was a second lieutenant in the engineers.
Mhm.
I only graduated from officer candidate school about 3 months before I was on a ship going over to North Africa.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
great.
that's
That was
great.
fast. That's great.
So-
That's fast.
This is an interesting question, and I'd love to hear your take on it. Somebody asked, like, have you forgiven your enemies?
Well, I hadn't ever considered forgiving him. They were people,
Yeah.
and so they shot at us, but we shot back,
Mm-hmm.
and we shot with more stuff than they had.
That's supposed to be the war.
That's the way a war goes.
That's the way it works. Yeah.
So,
Have
but
you
you,
ever had a
don't
chance-
hold any animosity towards
No, I
them?
don't
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. No
Actually,
reason to.
after the war was over,
Yeah.
we were at Magdeburg on the Elbe River. That was the last battle I was in,
Okay.
Oh,
and
that's east.
we went from Magdeburg back to Frankfurt, and then we went to Berlin, and we were our unit, the Second Armored Division, was the first combat unit that occupied the city of Berlin.
Oh, okay.
So that was an experience.
I can imagine.
But the German people in Berlin, I thought, welcomed us. They were glad that we were there.
We found that a lot of the Germans are very appreciative of what you guys were able to do because they were oppressed themselves.
Berlin was an interesting interlude.
Yeah.
I thought I had fun there. I spent a few days in the hospital.
Oh. Oh.
I was probably drinking more schnapps and water and got dehydrated.
Oh yeah. Well, that happens. It looks like water though sometimes, right?
Yeah, it did.
We have an off-camera pour.
Okay, but as a platoon leader in the engineers, we might hit dangerous areas at a time, but most of the time we were in good shape.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I recall when we were taking Julik on Brewer River. It was really a terrific battle. We went into that battle with all our tanks, and when we got to Julik that night, and I had an opportunity, well, my job right away was to clear the road from where we were located to Julik.
Oh yeah.
And I did that task as required. The colonel there was a little unhappy with me that I took so long to do it.
Yeah. And we actually went to Julik last year when we brought veterans back last year. We went to Julik and we got to see some of the remnants of what you guys were able to do there.
Magdeburg was on the Elbe was when we finished our battle, and that was one of the battles where I was on the front line, so to speak.
Okay.
I was sitting or standing there with the company commander of the tank company and the regimental commander, observing the action. And one of the infantrymen got hit. Well, it was actually he hit this German hit the tank, and tanker
Ricochet?
had his arm out the hatch,
Oh.
and it took it all off.
jeez.
Almost.
Oh.
It was
Cauterized
just
it.
hanging, and the guy came running back up to the command post, and my medic saw him, and he went out and he grabbed him and
Put a tourniquet.
put a tourniquet, or he put pressure on the artery in his arm so he wouldn't bleed anymore.
Yeah.
And then they loaded him on my Jeep and took him back to the evacuation hospital.
Kids, that's why your parents tell you don't have your arms out the window. Don't have your arms out the window on the car.
No one's that.
Sound advice right there.
And that was in Ulick?
It was on our way to taking Julick, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if I recall it right, Julick was on the Ruhr River.
Remember that famous photo?
Yep.
It was the 29th, right?
That was, yeah, 29.
29th division,
29th
right?
division.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, well, he.
Like, sorry it took us so long.
Yeah, like we were, or no, sorry for the way your town looks now. We were in a hurry.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry
yeah.
for the way your
Right
town
there at
looked.
the arch.
Yeah.
Going in, yeah.
Yeah.
It was one of those things, 19th Corps, which I was in, was made up of the 2nd Armored Division and the 29th and the 30th
Yeah.
Division.
Yeah.
That was our corps.
29th, 30th.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Now we're in Valkenburg. Now you actually came through Valkenburg, right?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. So somebody asked like if you did actually come through here. So
Absolutely.
yeah, you did.
Yeah,
come
we
through Valkenburg.
came through here, we didn't spend a whole lot of time though.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were underway. We had the enemy on the run, you might say, and so we kept the pressure on.
Yeah, you had to.
Well, today's pretty special because today is September 13th. And 75 years ago today, just as we went through the middle of Valkenburg today, that's when you guys came through. Same day today. 75 years ago
75
today.
years ago
75
today, you
years
rolled
ago
through
today,
here.
You came right through that same pathway that we went through
And
today.
you did the, yeah, you did that same path.
Some-
we did the
some,
parade today.
Yeah, some of the streets look familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
But no one was shooting
75
at
years
you.
ago.
People were cheering you now. but
They were
shooting at you.
cheering that then.
Yeah,
well,
they weren't cheering back then.
The
Some of them were.
Belgian people were glad to see us,
Yeah.
and they cheered us on.
Yeah.
The Germans weren't so happy about it.
No.
We had them moving.
So what was it like today during the parade going back through the gates of Valkenburg?
That was an experience. All those people, and I'm sure that a lot of them didn't live in this area, but they were there, and they sort of cheered us on. It makes you feel good
It does, huh?
when people appreciate your efforts.
It is pretty special after 75 years to see all these people out here. You know, they don't
They
forget.
still
They still
cheer
remember.
you on. They
Yeah.
still remember.
And that's the Dutch people.
That was
Wonderful
our,
people.
that was our friend Catherine crawling across the floor. Catherine was crawling across the floor.
That is funny.
Oh, there she is. Yeah, she's right there.
That's funny.
All right.
Cool.
That was our
Hey.
fearless leaders.
There are a lot of us here. We also got a $15 donation from someone. We need to give him a shout
got
out.
a $15 donation. Oh,
Robert
sweet.
now
Thank
is
you,
watching,
Shelby.
wants to join.
Oh.
Yeah, come on.
Well, we've got another World War II vet with us
Another
now.
World War
Pull up a
II
chair,
vet joining
pull up
us
a
right
chair.
now.
Army Air Corps.
Here.
Let's
Yeah, we'll squeeze you in here. We get another chair.
let's get another chair.
Here, slide over.
What a surprise! What a great surprise. Robert, you drink? You drink bourbon, Robert?
We're drinking
Yeah,
bourbon.
bourbon?
We're drinking bourbon.
Sounds good.
All right. We're drinking bourbon.
Sure, that sounds
No
good.
wonder they
All right.
won the war.
All right, here we go.
But they still-
Here we go.
Guys,
So you wanna
we're
introduce-
just winging this. We're just having fun.
Let him introduce
This is
himself.
all just, the more the merrier, right?
All right, there you go. All right, we got to make a little toast. We have Mr. Nom here.
Yeah.
So welcome to.
This is Mr. Robert Nom. Robert, why don't you introduce yourself
Yeah.
and tell them what you did in the war, what your rank and all that was. Take a drink first. Try that Angel's
Okay.
Den.
Take a sip.
That's the good stuff.
All right.
Didn't do much more than anybody else did. Went out and helped drop a few bombs over Germany.
Oh, he was
Just
Air
a few,
Force.
right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
a few bombs.
A little bit of support for the armies, our armies there. Tried to bomb ahead of them, not at them.
You missed us once
Okay,
in St. Lo.
there you are.
Yeah.
At St. Lo,
Okay,
day before that battle started at St. Lo, the Air Force, 8th Air Force came over with a fleet of bombers, and they started bombing what was, they thought, the front lines.
Mhm.
But actually what happened was the infantry laid down a smoke barrier to mark the front lines,
Mm-hmm.
and the wind blew the smoke back over to our troops. So when these guys came over, the first bombs that started dropping on our infantry instead of the Germans. But the next day they got it right. And I remember standing on a hillside there in Normandy, watching the Air Force come over and bomb. You know, the force of the explosions made your pants vibrate against your legs.
Wow. That's
There
weird.
was that much.
Wow.
It was a steady amount of bangs.
To say the least, right?
I
But
know.
was it comforting for you to like know when you had air superiority that was flying over?
Well, we really didn't get a whole lot of contact with the heavy bombers,
Mhm.
the B-17s and the B-24s. What we got was the P-47s, the fighter bombers,
Mhm.
that they were always in the air over us.
Yeah.
And when we had a little problem, like a roadblock or something of that sort, well, we'd just call
They'll come and open it up for you, huh?
Air Force, and they'd come over and soften it up a little bit for us.
All right.
I understand what you mean by your trousers just vibrating against your legs when their bombs would drop. We also got it when the flak come up and hit.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, you
Yeah,
think?
you're up in the air.
You know,
Oh, yeah, and then
Yeah.
you'd see the little opening in our fuselage of our airplane before you heard the bang.
well, I remember looking up at the Air Force when they were coming over with their B-17s, B-24s. I saw one airplane get hit. A bomb went, or a shell went right through the wing and exploded, and the wing folded
jeez.
And then the airplane came down, of course, because it only had half a wing.
Right.
And many times when they did fall apart like that, you saw, parachutes open, and many times no parachutes open, sometimes there were just body parts floating through the air. We've seen that happen, and one of the worst things actually during the time that it happened was when we got back to base, and we ended up, debriefing, then we obviously went to bed. But the toughest part for me was watching the empty beds that were in our barracks.
Wow.
These
Yeah, I
are the
think-
missing people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We still, some of them all blown right up while we were there in the air. Then we got home, we saw their beds were empty, so we knew who they were. These are people that we played cards with the night
Yeah.
before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And then next morning, the orderlies would come in with duffel bags, stuff them full of their stuff and take them home, and the following evening, we had replacements in there.
Wow.
Wow.
That's how fast it
Wow.
was.
That's just crazy to think about,
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
I know, just playing football, like having teammates, and it was kind of hard for us because in training camp, we always had so many guys, right? There's only, we only had 53 guys that are on a team, but then in training camp, we'll have 80 something guys, right? So we're there, we're practicing all year together, and then all of a sudden there's cuts. And after the first couple of years, because you start having friendship with some of these guys, and then they're gone, right? And then you're with your guys, you're with your guys all the time.
Yep.
So as we started going on, I'm sure with you guys as well, as a war kept progressing, sometimes when the replacements come in, you don't really get close to them because
Oh,
they may be
absolutely.
gone. It's the same thing for us. It's like, some of them, the guys that come in, like you wait till they make the team before you start a relationship because
Yeah.
they can be gone like that.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
True.
Very similar.
one of the lieutenants in the engineer battalion that I was in, A Company, Lieutenant McMahon, football player from Alabama
Mm-hmm.
and a good soldier, got killed. And it was a loss that we lost him. I remember I went to the cemetery at Pargarten looking for his cross,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't there. And apparently the family requested that his remains be sent home, and he was buried in Alabama.
Yeah, tomorrow we're going to Margaret Cemetery tomorrow morning.
Yep.
And,
I've been there.
Is there anyone that you want to go visit?
I looked the last time that I was over here at Margarten, and I believe there was a couple of men in our outfit that was buried in Margarten that got killed.
We'll have a list for you tomorrow, so you can.
We'll look them up again.
Yeah.
So, did you guys didn't spend any time in the trenches or anything?
No, we didn't spend
during
any
the
time.
war.
No.
We
You were up in there, and he was in the jeep, going places.
tanks and half tracks and well.
Probably a couple.
When we were in Normandy, for example, after we'd just gotten ashore, was up in the hill there by St. Lo and stationary, and I said, we were waiting to move, but we weren't moving. So I said, well, I'll dig a foxhole anyway. So I got my shovel out and started digging, and I dug a little depression in the ground that I could get into.
Now that's
Long
enough.
enough.
He's like, that's enough. That's enough.
And dang, the Germans came over and bombed us
Oh, jeez.
that night.
Right before you were just gonna take a nap.
Yeah,
So you had to dig your own foxhole. You didn't have.
I dug my own
You
foxhole.
did. Okay. All right, officer.
That
You
shows
didn't
good
have one of your
leadership.
privates like,
That's good
hey.
leadership.
All right, that's good. Lead by example.
Jinx.
Uh,
We said it at the same time. Buy me a Coke, seriously.
I got some bourbon for you. You got
Yeah.
any questions on there?
Oh, we do.
All right, let's answer some questions.
Yeah.
Let's talk to the people.
So,
And don't forget. Go on.
okay. So one question we have on here is, Where were you when you found out the war was over?
Where was I?
Yeah,
I was,
I'll ask you the same thing.
on the Elbe River at, Magdeburg,
Okay.
in the Elbe River. We had taken the city. And, then we heard that the war was over, so.
And what did that feel like for you?
Well, it was a relief.
I can imagine.
Nobody's gonna shoot at you anymore.
Did you anticipate it?
No, we didn't.
Didn't know it was coming, huh?
We didn't know that they were gonna give up that quick because.
You heard it,
or
you
maybe-
heard it, you heard
Maybe
it.
quick isn't the right term, but they gave up.
Feel quick for you guys.
Yeah, it was.
But how'd you get the word? I'm curious because like now, like in today's age, everything's by the phone and the internet, you know? It's like,
Oh, we didn't
No,
know
but-
either.
yeah, but how did they come to you? How'd you get the information? Did someone come in with a bullet? I mean,
Yeah, they came in and they told us that, war's over, and I was in Kettering, London, or Kettering, England, about 80 miles northeast of London. When we got the news, when the people came into our barracks and told us war's all over.
I was in Magdeburg on the Elbe.
Okay, well, we were in England,
Yeah.
and we were very thankful that, even though we did get shot at and so forth when going over there, when we came home at night, we had warm to go to sleep, and not like some of these fellows in stock, foxholes. Not like you, Major, where you had to dig your own hole.
Yeah, I had the conclusion that if I wanted a foxhole, I had to dig it myself, and I had a shovel, and I dug my hole, and the men that under my command dug their own holes. And a time or two, as we were progressing, the Germans dug our holes for us.
I got you.
They had already dug these fine foxholes,
Meticulous, I'm sure.
dug it down so maybe you could be into the ground up to your neck, and that little overhang so that if there was shrapnel coming down, you would have a protection of the earth to get out of it. But
No,
yeah,
I guess
as a lieutenant, I dug my own foxhole.
one thing we didn't have to do, when we got back at night, we were lucky enough to get a weekend pass, we ended up in a British pub.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You know what?
That was better.
British
Oh,
pub, British pub.
Well, yeah.
Where we were yesterday.
They didn't have any British pubs where you were, was there?
No. Sorry, crowd.
We managed to find out where the booze was.
Oh, did
They made it work.
That does kind of remind me of a time. We took a winery, and the men got into that winery, and they said, "Oh my God, look at this! All these great big barrels of wine."
You liberated a winery? Okay.
They
Go on.
they took their guns and shot a hole in the keg,
Oh, wow.
and then they caught it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and the funny part of it was, well, it wasn't really funny, but we ended up where our squad would have as much as 15 gallons of wine in their half track.
The squad.
A squad, 12 men.
Yeah, 12 guys
That's what, 1.25 gallons per guy?
per guy. Yeah.
And I know, I'll have to recall
And you
too.
still won the war.
Yeah, we got to Berlin, and we were in Berlin, on a weekly basis, we'd send a 2.5 ton truck back to Leipzig to pick up 3 barrels of wine and a keg.
Pick it up.
No, it was beer, kegs of beer and wine. And each one of the platoons then would have a barrel of beer or wine, and the officer would have their little keg of beer as well.
There you go. There you go.
Did you reimburse the Army for the gas that it took to go get that wine?
No, we really didn't.
Well, we made ours a little bit legal because the commandant of our base down in Marseille, France, he was a boy from Missouri and he loved good steaks. And he'd call me up because I was the lead navigator at the Marseilles. He says, Nomsky, it's time we go get a training flight in. So we take this 4-engine bomber, go down to Gibraltar where you heard about a great steak house there. Or we'd go to Naples, Italy,
Wow.
and
To get steaks.
get steaks. But it wasn't an extra cost to the US people because that was training flights.
There you go. There you go. You heard it live. You heard it live right there.
I didn't know that was going on.
Oh, yeah.
But
Someone's
we
eating
did
K-rations.
have good,
See, right.
close cooperation with the Air Force. The 8th Air Force sent us an officer who was a pilot as a liaison, and this pilot then, we had one tank designated for that individual that had radios in it that would communicate with the airplanes. It was called cut break.
Called what?
Cut break.
Cut break?
A break.
Cut break would call in a flight of P-47s and they'd knock out the strong point that was bothering us and then
Right
we'd
on.
keep on going. But we had a great lot of support from the P-47s at that time, fighter bomber.
It's teamwork right there.
Yeah.
Everybody working together.
And we had the pilot right with us. It was kind of funny in Normandy when this pilot came up to our unit. He was a lieutenant colonel, and he jumped into the tank and he said, "Take me where the action is." So
Okay.
they got right up there
Okay.
in the front lines in that tank. And then the colonel went back to his unit.
Mm-hmm.
They sent in a second lieutenant. And first battle, the lieutenant didn't say anything about where he wanted to go. And the crew of the tank decided, like the colonel wanted to be on the front line, so they took him up there. And first thing he got was a round in the turret.
Oh, wow.
I think an 88 hit the front of the turret,
Wow.
and was a piece of metal around the gun placement. It was probably about a foot thick, and that round ammunition from the Germans went right through that guard and hit the turret and bounced up. But
Jeez.
I think the noise of it hitting a tank was enough to change the lieutenant's mind about where he wanted to be.
Yeah, it is, that's for sure, right?
Early in 45, when the war did end, then we had to bring all our ground troops back home somehow or other.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I ended up at Marseille, France, because navigators were in short supply at that time. And so we'd play cards the night before, and I'll tell you, these infantrymen were a tough bunch of hombres. We'd play poker at night, and they'd set their guns, or Lugers, or Rugers, or
Yeah.
welcomes all around the poker table,
Uh-oh.
all over it. Better not cheat. And so then we'd fly him, next day we'd fly him down to Port Leone or Casablanca in Africa. And as a navigator, I had to make sure that we didn't come too close to Spain, because they were fiercely independent at that time and continued to be after war ended up in that theater. Well, a couple times we came not over Spanish land, but close enough that they fired some flags up at us. I don't think they were trying to hit us, but they
Is that
certainly
right?
sent us warnings, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I never knew that. Did you know
Wow.
that?
No.
Oh, yeah.
I knew that they're independent, but I didn't know if they were like defending their country and firing at.
Anybody
was
came
involved.
over, they didn't want to be any involvement.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, they let us know that they're getting too close.
Interesting.
Then we had to go by through Gibraltar and down Coriolis.
Well, if you're just joining us, we're live in Holland right now with Francis Turner, 100-year-old World War II veteran, Second Armored Division. Pretty tough guy. And then Robert here decided he wanted to join the party, so he came over. And this is Robert Nom. Tell him how old you are.
96,
96. He's the baby of the group.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And as Francis Turner
That's-
always says, oh, to be 98 again.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah. This is a real pleasure for me, because usually back home, I'm the oldest in any group. But
There
here-
you go.
Yeah, you're a
here,
baby here.
I can hide a little bit here.
And so we're just talking with the guys, asking questions. You guys can ask some questions.
Yeah.
We'll try and get to them.
We have people here.
But one question we asked Francis earlier, and someone just asked again, how is it for you to be back here in Holland 75 years later and to see the way the people are?
It's just fantastic, because they've always been friends of ours, and I've interacted with them during my civilian years after the war, and these people are just phenomenal.
How has this trip been so far for you?
Unbelievable. One day is just better than the next. You think it can't get any better than it does.
And we've
These
been here like
people
2
are so-
days.
Well,
the
first
second day was better than the first
Well,
day.
the first day we started at the embassy.
Oh yeah, so this is our third day.
And then
that's right.
yesterday
Yeah.
at Mersh,
Right.
Mesh.
Now they tell us that tomorrow's gonna be even better. I
It
can't
is,
imagine.
it is, it is.
I'll drink to that.
Yeah,
Cheers.
we'll drink to
Tomorrow's
that.
gonna
Cheers, everyone.
To tomorrow
Here's
being
to-
even better
here's to
than
tomorrow.
last.
Here's to tomorrow.
Cheers.
To our people off camera, cheers.
Cheers.
BB.
Cheers to you all at home as well. Have a drink
right.
with us. We're drinking some bourbon,
Hanging out with the World War II veterans
talking to
here
World
in
War II
Gothenburg.
vets, having a good time. So yeah, if you got any questions for him, hit us up on the chat. And let's see.
I got a question. You
Oh,
talked.
Donnie got a question.
Yeah, you talked about the 88. You talk about the 88, and tell the people out there about the 88 and how fearsome was that weapon during the war.
Well, the 88 was a long-barreled anti-tank gun, and it had a lot of velocity. It would go right through a Sherman tank, just like butter. I guess probably I had them shooting at me a time or two. We were in a forest before we got to the Brew River, and the shells were coming in and they were exploding in the trees above us. But we still had to clear that road and to take the tanks or the mines out of it. So we did it without. We got 2 men killed in my platoon out of that action, but we got it cleared out.
You got your objective.
Wow. So yes, handsome men. They think you're just handsome men.
Oh,
They like it. A lot of people on here just love hearing your stories. They're all thanking you for your service. Such a cool thing. Oh, somebody saw us on the news and subscribed. Very cool. So let's see. Robert, did you ever have any enemy planes trying to shoot you down?
Oh, yes.
I'm pretty sure.
We
Pretty sure
were
that's a
there.
big yes.
Which time?
Yeah, which day?
We were
Yeah.
there late in the war. Fact is, we were there the last 60 days of the war. And theoretically, we had control of the skies. But I say theoretically, because
Yeah.
we'd go over and they'd come up at us, and especially when our escorts left us. They'd come up from the ground and we'd try to bomb their airports and so forth, and try to bomb their planes on the ground, which we got a couple of times. But they did come up and we shot at them, and actually, a little story, I'm a duck hunter and a goose hunter, and I've gone on some goose hunts that I'm not too proud of. These guys take you out in a cornfield and they line you up about 8 foot apart. They call the geese into the field. Geese come down, sit in the field, and the leader says, okay, shoot. And here we are, all just lined up in a row, 8 foot apart. And everybody's shooting like an army. All of a sudden, the guy on my right says, I got him, he's mine. You couldn't tell who got him. And that's the way it was when shooting at the enemy. I don't know if we hit any or not, or if I hit any, I don't know. I was shooting at them,
Yeah,
but so was everybody else.
right.
Yeah.
So who got him?
True.
We were sitting right off the end of a runway, an airfield in north central Germany, and they were flying off of that airfield. And they'd come up over us, and we'd start shooting at them. We were shooting at them with 30s and 50 caliber machine guns, and we were going through boxes of ammunition like it was free.
It wasn't at that point.
For you guys, it was pretty.
Yeah.
It wasn't long, and the commanding general of the division says, cease and desist. Don't go shooting at those guys. You're wasting ammunition.
Yeah.
Because we wasn't hitting anything.
I know, but it still pissed you off. You're like, damn it.
When the planes come up against us, we had no restrictions on how many shells we shot. Everybody on the plane just shot, and there were several positions where we had the 50 caliber machine guns. And that jarred you up, I'll tell you.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Interesting. We're still using that same gun today.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That 50 caliber is still the same gun,
Absolutely.
and a 30 caliber machine gun is still the same gun. But it was effective. It wasn't. You could tell a difference between an American gun and a German gun.
The
The
MG42.
Germans' guns, rapid fire was much quicker than ours. But I don't know how effective it was because they didn't win.
Yeah. Wow. Bum.
And there's the zinger. Okay.
The Germans had a lot of equipment that was far superior to ours in the war. They had the jet planes, and they had faster planes, more maneuverable planes, and everything else, but we had the benefit of having a supply chain back home that wasn't being bombed constantly, so we were able to replace. And ours was a war of attrition, actually.
Attrition. War of attrition.
We just
Yeah, they had some.
overcame them.
Yeah, they had some weapons that were, some people would say superior. You know, the 88 was
That 88
pretty special. I know
was
that-
a very accurate and effective gun. And our tanks had 75 millimeter guns
Right.
in a turret, and it's a short barreled gun, and it was just like a pop gun compared to the German 88 tank when they fired. The difference between a rifle and a pop gun.
But we could build a lot more,
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
them out to our front lines.
Yeah, for sure. What about the Tiger tank? You ever see one of those?
Oh yeah, I saw a few of them,
Yeah.
and
What do you think about those?
they couldn't keep up to us. The Tiger tank wasn't quite as maneuverable as the Sherman. And the only thing that the Sherman had was it was fast and it could move, even though it had a short barrel 75. But later in the war, we began to get some Sherman tanks with 76 millimeter guns in them, and that was a long barrel thing. When that fired, it was sort of terrifying. I remember the difference. You know, you'd be in front of a Sherman tank with a 75, and it'd be pop. You know, it was just like pop. But when that 76 fired, it screamed.
Man. So, let's see, we got a question here. After the war was over, how long until you made it back to the States? How long were you guys over here after it was all over?
Any occupation duty?
Yeah, we were, the 2nd Armored Division was the first combat division of the U.S. Army to occupy the city of Berlin. So even though the war was over in Europe, we still were there for, I think, 6 weeks we spent in Berlin before we were moved back into the rear area and 101st Airborne Division replaced us.
Yeah.
But we had the advantage that we got there first, and we were able to set up the billets or the living quarters. And we went into, I was with the billeting party when we went into Berlin, and we looked for a nice house. And then when we found what we thought was nice, why we walked right in and says, out, everybody out. We're gonna take over here.
Did you feel guilty about that, or
Didn't feel guilty at all.
leave your food in the refrigerator?
Yeah. We had an area in Berlin, I can't tell you the streets, but on one street there was 3 or 4 big houses. They were really big houses. And around the corner then was 2 little houses that were connected with a garage. The garage connected to 2 houses. So we used this one house on the corner as a company CP, and the next door house, connecting house, was the officers' quarters. And around the corner, each one of the each one of the platoons had a house.
You guys are all connected.
And that made it real nice. We could fall out on the street for information, to do all those kinds of things that armies do.
Well, obviously,
What about you,
You
Robert?
want,
obviously because I had to stay behind and help move the troops out of Germany and into the port of embarkation at Port Leone in Casablanca in Africa. So we stayed in a few months longer before we were released, as we brought all the infantrymen and so forth to their ships so they could go on to Midway and then home. So we were there. An ironic thing of it was my crew, because there wasn't a shortage of some of the other members of the crew members, were like there was the navigators. So my crew flew back to the States in comfort, and when they finally released me, they put me on a 56-foot lead-lease ship. And that thing rocked and rolled. And
56
I
Wow.
barely made it.
wow.
I was on the verge of being along with the rest of them. And you can't imagine the smell down in the bunk room.
Oh, man, I can't
It was
imagine.
awful. But that stood me well, because now when I go fishing, I never get sick of it.
I used to go up in the bow of the ship and stand there at the rail, and that ship in that rough sea, it would go up in the air, and then it'd come down just like a express elevator. That was kind of fun.
Oh, did no
Did
one
you get
tell you
sick?
that the best place to sit in a sea like that is back in the stern?
Well, yeah, we're back of the engine room.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
If
Our-
you're sitting in front, you're gonna get beat up.
Did you ever get seasick?
No, never did.
Never did.
Lucky.
No, and the ship that I went over from Norfolk to North Africa was a diesel electric ship, and it had just one big, huge engine in the middle of the ship that drove a propeller shaft.
And that smell of diesel fuel to make you get
No,
sick?
I didn't.
Jeez.
I didn't smell any diesel fuel or anything like that, man.
Wow.
I enjoyed that ship, AKA 21.
AKA 21.
It was an Army cargo ship, built, I guess, for the Army for transport, and crewed by the Navy. So it was a
So
nice,
the Army does have ships.
the Army did have ships. They had own ships,
Right?
and it had a Navy crew on it.
There you go.
Well, cool. Well, we've been going for an hour and 10 minutes
Right on.
right now. And so I think we'll call that a wrap for the night, but we're going to try and do this every night while we're here. So be on the lookout. We're going to try and figure out a good time. But as we're going through these programs, we have so many cool things that we're taking these guys to every day. And, you know, sometimes we end up staying and having more fun than we thought we would. So we can't really, who knows when we're going to go on, but we're going to try and do this every day with a different veteran. And guys, I can't thank you enough for your service, and thank you for our freedom. And I know the people here are so appreciative of what you guys did for them. And it is an honor to be here with you guys and to experience you guys coming back, and just can't thank you enough. And Donnie, thank you so much for making this happen. I wouldn't be here. None of us would be out here doing what we do, getting to honor you guys without Donnie's passion for you veterans. And guys, I just can't say enough how special it is to be here with you. And with that, we'll sign off. And thanks everyone for joining.
Right on.
We'll see you tomorrow, hopefully. And thank you all that donated. If anyone wants to donate, all the money goes straight to bringing these guys back. And the more, we're going to keep bringing guys back as long as they're here. So, guys, thank you. Say goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
And bye.